Hello, welcome back to another episode of A Little Atypical. My name is Leja, you can call me Lay, and if you listen to the last episode, it was all about lessons because it's so important to look at what we learn to know where we are so then we can start creating our goals. Goals are meant to be the bridge that closes the gap between our current self and future self. And yes, we're saying future self because no more dream versions, just our future selves, and how near that future is based on the goals we set and the actions that we experiment with to achieve them. So honestly, we're just gonna jump right into it. Two sets of questions I want you to decide is set one is about how you envision your future self, and set two is spectating so you can figure out the goals you should have. First set of questions for your future self. What are the traits your future self have? You can look at this from the perspective of how you want to be described from an outside perspective, or how do you want to be described from yourself. Your physical traits, which includes your hairstyle, fashion, makeup, looks, scent, etc. What type of job or career does your future self have? What hobbies does your future self indulge in? What is your future self's financial state? What type of routines your future self has? What type of friendships your future self has? What type of skills your future self has? What is your future self's highest level of education, etc. And then from there, the next set of questions you need to ask yourself is to look more at your goals. So what is in your control / not in your control within that aspect? What blocks does my current self have? And this can look like things like limiting beliefs, resources, fear, a knowledge gap, new habits that need to form / old habits that need to be rid of, struggling to manage time, which is usually an underlying issue of most things, surrounding / environment, and personal weaknesses. And you need to remember when you look at each aspect of your future self and ask yourself those questions, you need to remember to look at blockages not as excuses, but as growth opportunities in which your goals come in. Let me give you an example. When you set a goal based on your limiting beliefs / fears, you need to work on uncovering the source, healing from what caused it, mindset work, looking for actions to challenge those things. If you're basing your goal based off of your resources, looking at goals to find resources, that can look like looking for a multitude of outlets of resources such as people, online info, and just different ways to fill the knowledge gap. The goals I set for 2025 were because of my personal weakness, which is professional socializing, because it's different than connecting with people that are supposed to be on a personal level, like friendships. And when it comes to professional spaces, it's kind of hard for me to know where the line is drawn, know what to talk about, and it's a personal weakness for me. And also, networking in my head feels icky, is the best way to put it, but it's something that is very necessary for me to become my future self. So I set goals rooted in that. Other things I set goals in is because of a knowledge gap / needing new habits to be formed, and also the desire to regain my spark. This year I did a lot of things that contributed to that, but I haven't felt like myself in such a long time. I'll talk about this more in the upcoming episode, but without further ado, here is your goal inspo. I created categories. I did connection, personal growth, health, finance, spiritual / religious goals, recreation, which includes like creativity, play, adventure, and experiences, home and environment, careers, and I just put an other category because I didn't know what to list it as. So I'm just going to go by the goals based off of category, and then at the end provide some tips, because these goals that I listed are basically vague ideas. They're not anything specific, but if you're anything like me, that you need to make the goal more specific, more measurable, but it really depends on the person, and I'll talk more about that at the end. So for connection, so the first goal is schedule blank friendship calls blank. So it could be like a certain number per week, per month. Basically, that's the gist of the goal. Meet 100 new people within blank industry. So whatever industry you want to go into, to get into blank spaces. So again, that's around like what industries you want to get into. Schedule friendship dates / dinners blank. So this could be like a certain amount weekly or monthly. Speak to your, I put family member for blank times a week. It doesn't have to be a family member. I just think I was saying too much about friends, but it can also be a friend. But I think family connections are good too if you have a family member that you enjoy and wish you talked to more. Reconnect with blank number of people already within your network. So that is about managing your professional connections. I also listed to go on more dates if you're in the headspace or in the energy of wanting to date. Not everyone is, but that is also a form of connection, to date intentionally if that's someone's season of life. Another thing I listed is practice celebrating others more / showing appreciation. I think this is a good goal to have, because especially a lot of people talk about how the world is very like isolated and that many people don't feel fulfilled within their friendships and relationships. And I think a huge part of that is due to a lack of connection, and especially a lack of connection between people. And yes, we always talk about like personal development content, but I also think doing your part and learning how to show appreciation for other people can also teach you how to show appreciation for yourself too, if you're in that headspace. But I think in general, the practice of showing appreciation is good and makes you feel better, is a good goal to build up to, because I feel like it's a lost art. And the last thing I mentioned was to volunteer for a cause, because I did do some volunteer work this year, but I honestly wish I did more or had more of a specified cause to do more volunteer work for. It's a good way to meet people, connect with things outside of you. So if you can, I think that's a good thing to try this year. On to personal growth, I said learn how to not react / let things trigger you. So this is about energy management. I don't think many people talk about this, about how when you are very reactive that it drains you. So practicing how to not react to every single thing around you so you can have more energy for the things that increases your energy instead of draining it. I think that's a good goal to have. Learn your learning style and put it into practice. So again, I feel like after we graduate, a lot of people don't like learning, but I think the problem with learning is that it's either people didn't like the topics being taught, or they didn't know their learning style and what formats of ways to learn works best for them. So learning your learning style, like outside of a space, or even if you are a student that can help you better with your studies, that could be a great goal to have. Practice public speaking. I think this is one of the most important skills and most transferable skills to have, because whether you're in business, whether you just want to be a content creator, learning how to publicly speak, enunciate words, project your voice, that will take you so far, and it's a very good underlying skill. I also said learn to play an instrument, learn a language. Those are more just like basic ideas, but I think when you learn to play an instrument, it does help with personal growth, but I guess it also could be considered like a creative outlet too. But I don't know, I just listed it under there. And I also said create a system for documenting your growth / wins. So I also think this helps us to really see what we did this year, because I feel like sometimes the year goes by so fast and so much happened, and there's so much like information overload that we kind of forget what even happened in a year. So having like a place to document your growth, your wins, and honestly, if you want to, like things just that randomly happened in the world, I think that's a good thing to start. And the last thing I said is to get into the habit of using time blocks. So again, improving an underlying things such as time management skills. I think in all areas of your life, if you can get into that habit of having time blocks and working within them and not getting distracted, you are so set for different areas of your life. Moving on to health, I just wrote improve your sleep hygiene. I don't think sleep is talked about enough in terms of health, because I know we always talk about like losing weight and this and that, but sleep and properly resting is so important, because when you don't get good sleep, you can barely like function properly throughout the day. It changes like how you process information. It changes how you just move about the day. When you get enough sleep, you're able to do things to the best of your ability in a greater capacity. Next thing is to limit screen time. Increase water intake. Some of us, like me, is terrible at drinking water. Increase your activity level is another goal, and that could look like daily movement. It can look like increasing your daily steps, or just setting a realistic amount of time that you can work out per week. I also added learn to cook meals slash create a realistic cooking schedule slash plan, because cooking for yourself, you know what exactly is going into you. But I know a lot of people just eat out because they feel like they don't have like the skills to learn how to cook, because some people like myself have been cooking since young. Like I think I started cooking 8, and I know some people around me started cooking younger, but then there are some people who never cooked for themselves until like college. In general, I think learning how to cook can not only be so healthy for you, but just like increase your confidence levels in ways that you can't imagine. And bonus points if you learn how to cook things outside of your heritage and culture. I think that's a cool thing to do. And it makes you more aware of people outside of you, if I'm being honest. Lastly, this is a vague thing, but quit a bad habit. And this can look like overeating or undereating, because honestly, unhealthy is both ways. When we overindulge and underindulge in food, and I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but as someone who was like on both ends, this is like the first time in my life having a healthy relationship with food. With me being younger, it was very restrictive, and then when I got kind of older, it was overindulging, and it was like kind of making up and going to the other extreme. And honestly, both sides and being on both sides, I felt lethargic all the time, not eating enough and eating too much. I finally am getting to a place where I am definitely a healthier body weight. I'm eating more meals throughout the day. When it comes to eating, everyone has like a different balance that works for them. So if you're overeating or undereating for your body, that is something that could be worked on for your health. And also other habits that I never participated in, but I know some people do, like smoking or drinking or drugs. Quit a bad habit and work your way on to doing that. Next category is finance, and what you could do is a no spend challenge. There are so many online. You can either follow one or just come up with your own. You can become a mindful consumer, which means improving the way you buy things to prevent like impulse buys and kind of stop impulse buying. Just being more mindful. Like for example, give yourself like a time, like if you still want something, like let's say you see something on social media, it looks good, it looks cool, and you want to buy it. Don't buy it when you first see it, but give yourself like days, and if you still want it after not seeing it and stuff like that, then maybe consider having a budget for it or saving up for it if you don't have the money instantly, or you get it at a certain point of day, or like something like that. Next is doing shadow work, specifically about your mindset around money. We sometimes have wounds around money, whether it's like we grew up with our parents saying like money is the root of all evil, or if we grew up seeing as money as lacking and the end all be all. So really understanding what is our mindset around money can be a good financial goal, so we can make improvements around that. And then I just listed like save for something very specific. When I wrote that, I was just kind of thinking about something that would be a huge purchase. For example, one thing, at least for me, is like that higher dose sauna is like a blanket type thing, like wrap. And honestly, the cost very expensive. Is it cheaper than going to a sauna? Yes. But is it something I can buy instantly? Nope, not at all. So having that like as an idea of like saving up for that so I can eventually buy myself that, and then just checking if it goes on sale at any point in the year. That's what I mean by save up for something specific. Like I'm saying like a huge purchase that's outside of your budget. Moving on to spirituality and religious goals. I put meditate, learning to meditate, go on a retreat for your respective spiritual beliefs or religious beliefs, starting a spiritual slash religion journal, developing a gratitude practice. I think gratitude is pretty much universal no matter what your religion is. So I just added that in. Practice a form of fasting. So I know when people hear fasting, they think of like not eating food, but fasting can also be just like not going on social media and just, you know, fasting is not just food, and people fast in different ways. And I found that very interesting. You can look up like different ways to fast, not like with food, but from something. And I said develop a prayer practice. I think a good amount of religious beliefs have some form of prayer. Have a monthly ritual for your spiritual practice. So I know when I say ritual, some people think it's like witchy, but a ritual is just something you do at a very specific point of the month. Like it could be like taking a bath, to clean yourself for the month ahead. The last thing I added, and I think this one is very important, and not a lot of people consider this, but learn how to be respectful of other spiritual practices while standing in your own. Because we have a shared earth. I think sometimes when people don't believe the same things that we do, that we take it as them saying we're wrong. But I feel like if we can learn how to be respectful of other people's practices without it changing our mind about our own practices, then we would live in a much more peaceful society. Next thing I listed is home slash environment goals. So I just said declutter, create a weekly cleaning routine if you don't have one, have a daily tidying practice if you don't have one, rearrange slash decorate a space, and organizing different areas. So that was very general, but it will look different based off of like if someone has like a small home apartment, if someone is moving. Those are just some ideas, but again, it depends on the person. For recreation, I put visit landmarks slash historical sites. I said have cultural experiences like going to museums, festivals, performance centers. I said attending more concerts, take a creative based class. So that could look like doing a baking class, a sewing class. That can look like a cooking class. It could look like pottery. It could look like learning how to play an instrument. So technically, what I wrote for personal growth could be applied here. It could be a dance class. Like there are so many different things you could do. You could do painting. You can do sculpting. I don't know. But there is a lot of creative things that you can get your hands on and try to do. For career, I listed deepening your understanding of your industry by looking towards like new innovations within the industry and how the industry is using new technology. So it's basically staying informed and keeping up to date. I also said finding a mentor and working with them on a blank basis. It could be monthly, it could be weekly. It really depends on what you need. Improving your soft skills, do some form of cross-functional training, attend seminars, webinars, summits for your respective industry, lead a project, could be a good goal, and learn how to work more efficiently so you can have a good work-life balance. And for others, because I did not know where to put these, Practice resilience and perseverance. Practice to stop oversharing. Have clear boundaries with others. Unlearn people pleasing tendencies. Practice being opinionated without it turning to judgment. I said being more present. Enhancing your emotional intelligence. I said practicing self accountability without it turning into blame/guilt. To overall improve your mindset. To improve your decision making process. And honestly, to celebrate life more. I'm going to end off with a couple tips, my top 3 tips for choosing goals and setting goals. So, the first thing I want to remind you is to decide if your goal needs to be more abstract or specific. And the reason why I want to say this is because I was watching like people set goals and just everything. I love end of year content when people are just like prepping and getting organized. I love organizational content. So this girl, she was making her goals and she was like, I'm going to keep it simple. I don't want to overwhelm myself, stuff like that. So some people need a more abstract goal for it to resonate with them. But if you're like me and you need steps, so you need to know what you're exactly doing to achieve that goal. So like I said, I follow the 12-week year. How I did this year is I named one specific thing and then I kept adding to that goal to make it a SMART goal, turned that into a full statement. Then I thought about like, why is this important to me? Then I thought about like what resources would be good to fulfill that goal. And then for tactics to add to that goal, so I have 5 things listed, basically 15 micro actions I have to do weekly in order to contribute to that goal. Their strategies. I have all that listed. One thing, like for example, I want to connect to 120 people by March 22nd. But how I'm doing that goal, I said I'm going to research and identify 15 people I would want to connect with every week. So the reason why 15 and look for 15 different people to connect with is because it will set me up to know who I want to reach out to and to acknowledge like what work they did, who they are, like learn like what do they do in the industry. If I'm looking at it from like a professional perspective, or if I'm looking at it from like someone I could see myself admiring in a way, like an author or like someone who travels a lot and everything. So knowing who I'm going to reach out to is a strategy to build to that. Tip number 2 is create a way to see if you are making progress. I think of all the aspects of a SMART goal is measurement is the most important, because measurement is data. Measurement will tell you if what you're doing is really working. Try to create a tracker. Try to create a way to document everything. There are so many different ways and different systems to set place to do that. And it depends on the type of person you are. Maybe you're visual. Maybe you work better with words. Some people work with videos or pictures, or like voice memos or something. Like there's so many different ways to track if we're making progress. You just have to figure out which one is for you. My 3rd tip is it is more important to decide on a goal based on if you can be consistent than rather having it be intense. So this is just like a reminder to not take up too much at once, because that is why I firmly stick to 3 goals. But honestly, if that's even too much for you and too much for your daily life and you're just someone who's entering personal development, don't do 3 goals. Do 1 goal. Have something to focus on the entire month. And if that's better for you, if that's healthier for you, if that's manageable for you and your life, because maybe you have a bunch of kids, like maybe you have a family, maybe you need to work on things in different timetables. And there's no shame on not taking on so many goals at once, because yeah, I said I'm doing 3 goals, but 3 goals for someone who is not working at this point versus someone who is working versus someone who has a family versus someone who has a huge family. It's so different. And someone who is in a different season of their life, like maybe they're not starting their career, they're established in their career. And those are all personal considerations. So when you set goals, you don't need to feel guilty over how much you set, how intense you make it, because you just got to do what's right for you. And not every goal is meant for intensity. Like, that's why even I was saying, like, the sleep goal, because for some people, maybe your goal is just to get more rest. Maybe you need rest. Some of us do. Maybe some of us need time to decompress, and that it depends on the person. And you should not feel guilty about whether you need to do more or if you need to do less. Sometimes doing less is good for people. So with that being said, that was the episode, and let's get on to the card pull. So for this episode, I got the card, the Sea Serpent. The Sea Serpent is part of the spirit category. So it says Sea Serpent, healing emotional wounds, expressing desires. The Sea Serpent represents the energy of expression, whether it's emotions, creativity, sensuality, or desire. The Sea Serpent helps us move and direct our energy into a healthy current. When the essence of this card is in balance, we express ourselves creatively and sexually without fear or shame. We know what we desire most. Our hearts are at ease and our relationships are meaningful and enduring. We loosen the grip of self-judgment and we let the cool waters of forgiveness in to heal our wounds. When the energy of the Sea Serpent is not yet activated, our emotions and creativity are left in the muddy waters. The current of expression stagnates in some areas of our lives, and in other places it floods. It's important to remember, no matter what the waters of our emotional lives look like, the Sea Serpent loves us just the same. Like a mother, she wraps herself around us in a gesture of protection. She supports us as we learn to express our true natures. The Sea Serpent and the second chakra. The subtle energy of the Sea Serpent occupies the area of the Svadhisthana chakra, located deep within the pelvic bowel. This chakra is known as our center of creativity and desire, and is associated with the water element. Svadhisthana translates as in her own abode, indicating this chakra is the home of the Divine Mother, or Kundalini herself. Moving on to what I'm grateful for. I said I am grateful to be making decisions in advance so I can take more actions in the year to come. One thing I did last year was I did plan out everything, but it felt like I planned in such a crunch that there were so many undecided details that I went into the year trying to make all these decisions while doing all these actions, and I was so burnt out by the end of the month. And having this time of like more clarity that I can jumpstart, I can pretty much start taking action now, make the decisions, the big decisions now, set everything up, whatever databases I need to make, whatever resources I need to find. I can make life so much easier for myself, and I'm grateful I have the time to do that right now. So that is all for today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it useful. I hope you found some ideas for your own goals. And don't forget to check out the last episode, which are lessons to carry into 2025 or the new year, whatever I titled it. And stay tuned for the last and final episode of 2024, which should be out on the 30th. And by then, I should be starting my first year one. What that looks like is talking about regaining your spark, what I did for it this year, and what I learned about it. That's the energy I want to go into 2025 with. I just want to recap that as my biggest takeaway. So stay tuned. So if you enjoyed this, you know what to do. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. Follow the podcast. Share it on wherever pages. It would mean the world to me. And thank you so much for listening. Have a good day, evening, or night. And I will talk to you in the next one. Okay, bye.